Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Ortega, and today we will be discussing the differences between the novel To Kill a Mockingbird and the film adaptation of the same title from 1962 starring Gregory Peck. Both the film and the novel have been nominated and awarded various accolades ranging from the Pulitzer Prize to Academy Awards for Best Actor, Best Writing, and Best Art Direction Set Direction. Adapting a novel into a movie is very difficult. A film can never fully capture every single moment or feeling evoked by writing, but a film creates a visual interpretation of a novel. The film adaptation of the novel To Kill a Mockingbird successfully delivers the same theme of racial injustice in the 1930s as the novel does, while having to cut out some characters' events and certain implications due to time constraints, and the lack of narration from Scout's first-person point of view. The first difference seen is at the beginning of the novel and of the film. In the novel, Jem and Scout meet Dill, but in the film, Mr. Cunningham brings his payment to Atticus as the first scene. This brings us to the topic of characters. Since movies don't have time to establish as many characters as the novel does, some characters were cut out, including Aunt Alexandra, Uncle Jack, Little Chuck Little, Mrs. Dubose, and Mr. Underwood. Also in the novel, Dill was Miss Rachel's nephew, but in the film, Dill was Miss Stephanie Crawford's nephew. Due to characters being cut out, events that happened in the novel with those characters were not included in the film, such as Jem receiving a box from Mrs. Dubose, and Mr. Underwood covering Atticus from the window with a shotgun. Also, in the novel, Mrs. Dubose calls Atticus a nigger lover in front of Scout and Jem, but in the film, Mr. Ewell is the one who calls Atticus this. But only Jem hears it because Scout is asleep in the car. Due to Aunt Alexandra being cut out, the topic of Scout acting more ladylike is also overlooked. Another character whose role was minimized was Mrs. Mowdy. The part where her house burns down isn't even seen in the film. In the film, Boo Radley never speaks, but in the novel, he does speak one line to Scout saying, "Will you take me home?" In the novel, Scout and Dill have romance, and Dill promises to marry Scout, and they say they're engaged, but this isn't even mentioned in the film either. In the film, Calpurnica wasn't as focused on as much as she was in the novel. For example, the part where she takes Jem and Scout to the church wasn't included in the film, and that kind of took away from her as a character, because throughout the novel, Calpurnica is explored individually various times and is seen as a mother and a mentor-like figure to Scout and Jem, and shows them that races aren't very different after all. The film also creates the idea of Jem and Scout's deceased mother having more of an impact on them than in the novel. In the film, there's a dialogue between Scout and Jem about how their mother was, but in the novel, very little is dedicated to their mother at all. The film also creates the scene where the judge asks Atticus to defend Tom, but this isn't present in the novel. There are also a few visual differences, such as Tom's left arm in the film. It's supposed to be 12 inches shorter as it was described in the novel, but it isn't. Also in the novel, Scout goes to school in her overalls, but the film, she goes in a dress. In the novel, there are also two classroom scenes, but both of these were left out of the film. There is also a difference when the trial begins, where in the novel, whites enter before the blacks do, but in the film, blacks and whites enter together and then they take seats in their divided sections. This leads us to the differences in the trial. In the trial, Tom Robinson uses his right hand to lift the limp one onto the Bible, but in the film, he uses his right hand and he places it on the Bible. In the trial, the implied incest between Mr. Ewell and Myla isn't discussed due to the controversy it would create, since the movie was created in the 1960s. In the novel, the main character seems to be Scout, while in the film it's Atticus. Without the first-person narration by Scout in the film, a bit of personal touch is lost, and the film tends to make a wider view on the trial and time leading up to it. Considering the film is still seen today as an accurate portrayal of the novel, it affirms that it was successful in conveying the message and theme of racial injustice intended by Harper Lee. Thanks for watching.